Welcome to the Coffee Show, episode 2 of our World of Coffee Jakarta edition special. Going to do a lot of coffee podcasts this week, and we've got a special treat for you, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone listening at home, watching at home, the one, the only, the magnificent Hidenori Izaki-sama.
Arigato, Kirk-san. How are you going?
I'm going very well. I think one of my Japanese staff members, she taught me how to say welcome to, so Yokozo the coffee show, eh? Did I get it correct?
Well done, man. Yeah, you're doing well.
Shout out to Mayuko back home.
Thank you.
How are you?
Awesome. Just arrived to Jakarta yesterday night. Catch up with a friend. Beautiful dinner. In this morning, World Brewers Cup emceeing, which is great. Done quick one business meeting. That was nice. And then here I am right now.
I've got to say, of the routines that I watched this morning at the World Brewers Cup, the standard is being raised.
Man.
Every year.
Kirk, exactly. So that's what I thought. Even comparing from the last year, I think the level of the routine are so sophisticated, and you cannot really compare with the any other past competitions. It's so high in the level.
Well, sometimes I think to myself, even as a coffee professional, it's like, how much further can you go each year? Can there be new ideas each year? Maybe there's only a certain amount of ideas altogether. But the competitors, to their credit, they just keep raising the bar.
Yeah, like pushing boundaries, right? I think that's one of the most important concepts for the competitions. So, ever since we founded WBC and all the related competitions, I think the role of the competition is that to push the boundaries. And then I kind of feel, it's a manual brewing, right? And then manual brewing, I feel like there's not much things to do in order to innovate the brewing. But, that competition today tells me I'm 100% wrong. And they're pushing a boundary and they're doing something new. Incredible, man.
Special mention to Carlos Escobar, who I watched this morning. And
yeah.
I got a little emotional watching it because I know Carlos well. He used to live in Australia.
Right?
And he's had an incredible journey as a human being, and I would not be surprised one bit if he wins the whole thing. I would not. He's a fantastic brewer. Probably the best speech I've ever seen in a Brewers Cup.
Exactly, yeah. His speech was very emotional, but at the same time very organized. So it's so easy to kind of follow his instructions, and the content are amazing as well.
Now, a few months ago, we met each other in Dubai.
Yes.
We had a really interesting conversation on artificial intelligence. We were time constrained, so we promised each other that we would continue the conversation.
Thank you.
And here we are. Let's start with how you're implementing AI right now with your business, Cocoon. So the first sort of implementation that I've seen you use is with a chatbot.
Mm-hmm.
And you explained to me when we were in Dubai that you had a friend with a hotel that had an AI chatbot.
Yeah.
And he was able to increase his bookings by something like 20%, I think it was.
It's more like a CS, customer satisfaction, right?
Yeah.
Customer satisfaction, like increased 20%.
Customer satisfaction increased 20% because of the implementation of this. And some of the reasons being were that they could effectively ask questions unrestricted because they felt certain shame from asking certain questions that some people might consider dumb questions or whatever, and they can just do it without issue.
Right.
So I guess that was part of your rationale for implementing it?
Exactly. So I think back in Dubai, so it was February, was it?
Yes.
February? Mm-hmm. Yeah, still we are at the process of implementing AI to our chatbot, but now we done implementing chatbot to our Instagram DM, and then now it used to be I used to check every single day in order to accommodate the request from the customer around the world, but now I don't check it at all.
Okay.
So almost 100% our AI chatbot are replying messages to the customers.
And so it's been very effective, obviously.
Very effective, especially for the reservation purposes. After implementing AI to the chatbot, we see sudden rises of the reservation rate, especially after the DM.
Right.
After the DM, because customer wants to book when they want to book, they want to book now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and then it used to be so when they want to book, they send us a DM, but we cannot reply immediately. Yeah. So we used to take maybe 1 day maximum to reply back. So we kind of missed that opportunity. But now, since we implemented AI, so they are ready 24 hours. So whenever we got the inquiry regarding a reservation, the AI can reply back immediately. So that now the reservation rate are much higher.
How do you see yourself implementing AI in the near future with coffee? Because I think this is something that it's good for someone like you to take a bit of leadership on in the industry, because it will be great for other cafes, roasteries, coffee farmers, whatever, to implement AI. How else will you do it?
First of all, I think the reservation rate. But for there are a few coffee brand that starting coffee omakase business model, which considered to be a high-end business model of the coffee industry. So for those model are definitely effective. Yeah, because people has no idea what the coffee omakase is, right? So they have a bunch of questions before making a reservation because it's not cheap. So that's why using AI for customer relationship management makes really sense. Second, this is for most of all the coffee industry people, education. It's internal education. So in order to run internal education, so you used to get together and then sharing a table, and you need to listen to it, right? But now if you have AI, so you can ask any question about your brand. For example, for history of your brand, for example, how long the coffee show, by Kirk last long, for example, right? And then who is a Kirk?
So it can give you all the background
All the
information.
backgrounds, yeah, all the backgrounds information they give you immediately, because it's silly question as well. You cannot really. If I was your employee, yeah, and then asking Kirk, can you tell me when do you start this podcast? And then you immediately feel like, you idiot. You didn't even know when I started this podcast. Right? But it's important for the customer communication perspective. They need to know, they need to answer every single question from the customer. So that's why AI chatbot works really well for the education purpose for the employees.
It's been really good for me in my personal life a little bit using artificial intelligence. So, I'll start with the work setting. So with the podcast, my research has gotten probably like 4 times quicker because I can ask questions on AI. So,
right.
Because previously it's like if I'm researching a subject, I have to type it into Google, see some articles, try and validate it, all that sort of stuff. Now I can click on AI. It'll have a bunch of different subjects for me, and I can sort of verify the source a lot quicker. So like,
exactly,
saves me a lot of time.
Exactly.
Sorry, did you have something to say?
Oh, no, sorry. So in a custom GPT, so I've been working on a custom GPT for quite a lot. Like what a typical custom GPT is that maybe, email replying bot, for example, so that when you upload the knowledge base to the chat GPT, and the chat GPT knows all the prompt and then also the back histories, so that chat GPT can write the email as if you are actually writing, right? So that's a very typical custom GPT. But one of the custom GPT that I'm making lately is that Hidenori Izaki bot. So I am a consultant, right? So I've got so many questions from the customers. And what I found was that most of all the questions are pretty much the same or overlapping. The interests are overlapping anyway. So that's why lately, after we completed the Cocoon's AI chatbot project, now I'm working on my custom GPT, and eventually I will rent those custom GPT to my client so that my custom GPT can answer maybe 80% of the question they have, and then 20% I focus on most of it.
It was interesting. I've got a friend who manages a few different businesses that are in different fields, and he explained to me how he's using Google Gemini.
Okay.
Which seems to me like it's quite a powerful AI. So what they'll do is he'll have his inbox on Gmail.
Yeah.
He can integrate them with Google Gemini somehow. He can ask it to do costings for him based on suppliers that he's emailed, and it'll just automatically do it and generate a spreadsheet
right.
and all those sorts of things. So I mean, as a toolkit, I just think if we can implement that as an industry, or anyone listening to this can, try it today, try it tomorrow.
Definitely. As I said, for especially education, you can do it immediately, man. Immediately. Any coffee brand you run, you run the coffee brand, or whether you're running a roasteries, or whether you're running, simple cafe, doesn't matter as long as you hire people.
We had Gabrielle Agrelli, on just before we started this podcast, and we spoke a little bit about AI and farming. So I want to get your opinion on this. So I did some research on some things that AI could influence in the coffee industry, and we might go through them one by one if you don't mind. So like precision farming and coffee growing. So he explained to me that where he'll probably apply it this year is in sort of predicting weather. And by making, by being able to sort of have a good prediction on what the weather is, they can make inferences and water the plants at certain times, not water the coffee trees at certain times, because they can predict when the rain's going to come, or do they activate the irrigation system? And on a big farm like that, that makes a huge difference. And it can also detect like diseases on coffee plants. So like you're screening coffee plants, all those sorts of things. Have you heard about any of these things, or does it make much sense to you?
It makes perfect sense, I think. I haven't heard about implementing AI to the coffee farming, not much. But for example, fish feeding system, for example, in some, I don't know what's it called, but for fish feeding system, yeah. So those fish feeding system, they implement the AI to the feeding system so that they can change the content of the food based on the weather, based on the season automatically. So they can calculate automatically. So that definitely increase the productivity of the fish feeding system. So it can be applied to definitely coffee farming for sure, especially for Brazil. Massive land, so many things to cover. But if you integrate AI, I think no matter how big or how small your farm is, definitely your productivity is much higher than ever before.
One thing that I've spoken to two really good industry figures on this, both Matt Perger and Scott Rao, about roasting and AI. So
for AI?
Yeah. And it must have been about 10 years ago. Matt did a sort of speech where he was speaking about how in the future, roasting systems will be able to you'll be able to sort of detect defects in samples of coffee very easily in the future and make automatic changes in the roasting. And Scott Rao sort of said something similar where his prediction is within like 5 to 10 years or something, most roasting jobs will be gone because it can be so easily automated. Do you know much about this?
I mean, Matt living 10 years ahead.
Always.
Always. So I think if Matt says so, it makes sense. And I think for especially roasting, because roasting has been a myth for coffee supply chains, because roasting is something that you need to master through lots of experience and activities, exercise. So that that's why the consultant like Scott Rao, those people are highly regarded and respected, right? But I think at the same time, now as Matt is estimated already, some of the roasters are now producing their own roasting curve based on, for example, the density, for example, right? So it's not generated by the AI, but it can be applied to the AI too. Yeah.
But I feel like roasting is one of those things where it could probably be implemented the quickest and the easiest because of the amount of data that's now available. You think if you just dumped all the data from like Cropster, for example, and you let AI sort that out, or all the roast profiles over many years of time, like eventually pairing it with cupping notes and things like that. It makes sense why that could be probably the quickest and most easiest.
I think anyway, the biggest biggest issue in order to make a perfect AI for the roasting, I think, is that how to consolidate all the data around the world, because we have so many datas. So which doesn't mean that having a lots of data is a good thing for AI, but you need to kind of organize the data from lots of thousands of different data. So that sometimes becomes a noise, right? So that's why having a data is important, but at the same time, how to organize data is very, very important. So which means how to build a very effective knowledge base.
So what does that mean in practice? Like sorting, let's use roasting again as an example, having good data and data that recognizes bad coffee, or there's data that's useless sort of thing?
Yeah, so that's the whole point, For example, if it's education, the reason why I said coffee industry can implement AI immediately, the field is, education. Is because education, you know your answer, right? So you have your own, rule, regulation in the company. So which means if you do this, wrong. If you do this, you are good. So so that you have a clear answer, you have a clear vision answer towards to the AI. But for roasting are very, very controversial because you cannot say dark roasted is wrong. Yeah. And then it's very hard to define what the good roast is.
So, well, I guess in a way, like in the way that you calibrate your chatbot to work for you, you could calibrate the roasting AI to work for you as a company and have many different styles. It's not like AI will narrow it down to one type of making a filtered roast, for example.
Yeah. In the future, yes. But first of all, I think we need to consolidate all the data. Yeah, and then we need to assess which data is actually effective for roasting. Yeah.
One of the other things, a point that drew my interest was smart espresso machines. Now, I can see this one as well because with there's an enormous amount of data that gets input into an espresso machine each day in a cafe. You think of the La Marzocco if you're programming the volumetrics or the recipes.
Yeah.
You could use that. Decent coffee machines. I feel like that's like one where you could very much make that. Have you seen any examples of that being created at the moment, or do you know of any?
No, I haven't seen it. I think one of the most advanced category is definitely super automatic machine. But even the super automatic machine, haven't seen it yet. But I'm pretty sure they're working on it. Yeah.
So yeah, it can't be far away. I wanted to ask you as well. I want to do a little bit on competition now, and we've kind of had this discussion privately over the internet. And I spoke a little bit with Aston Newton about it yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And I kind of want to take things further with competition and making it a bit more of a spectator sport. So my problem is right now, if you watch Brewers Cup routines, even though we just said there was some exciting ones, like it can be a bit of a dry watch because you can't actually taste the coffee. And so the participation's limited by what you see on screen. I feel like we should have what I was putting to you, and I've spoken to some other people about, is we should have hosts, commentators that taste the coffees in advance beforehand, that can give good analysis. And I think a competitor, once they're finished and they're getting interviewed, and you were doing this very thing this morning, there's probably a sense of relief, and they've just had this big rush going through them. They can't give you a great big breakdown of their routine straight away. And I wouldn't be able to do it either. I feel like we should sort of change some of the commentary, some of the analysis, some of the theatrics around it. Agree? Disagree?
Agree.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we need to also understand the current structure and the aim of how it's the competition founded, right? So as we discussed in the very beginning, the reason why we founded competition is that to promote let's say, to kind of push the boundaries of the coffee extractions. And also, it started from the WBC, and now, we have Brewers Cup, Good in Spirits, Latte Art, all of those competition, but based on the idea that as our industry push the boundaries to innovate our industry. So that's the whole idea, whole concept. So, which means that competition platform are designed exclusively towards to the industry, not for consumers. So this is a difficult point because once we attract so many consumers right now. Yeah, obviously in Jakarta we have so many competitors and consumers right now. But once we attract all of the consumers, and we have no bridge between consumer to the competitions, because competitions are unfortunately designed to exclusively towards to industry.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's why we need to kind of change the mindset.
Yeah, well, I feel like, well, are there any rules you would change about it that would make it a bit more appealing to?
Can be, but at the same time, we need to kind of. It's probably this is my point of view, right? It's much faster to rebuild a competition from scratch, because now most of all the competitions right now based on the idea that pushing pushing the boundaries of the industries, and then those looting are based on the industry, not build a competition based on the consumer interactions.
If you were to build the Brewers Cup from scratch again, what would some changes that you would make would be?
Consumer approach, definitely, as you pointed out. Since we attract so many people, but as you said, you have no way to taste coffees.
Yeah.
No way to taste coffees, which is boring because, if you listen, if you are a normal consumer, think about it, yeah? So they talk about shit loads of flavor profiles, shit loads. And then most of the people had normal consumer had no idea coffee tastes like a fruit. So, which means that they are speaking a completely different language from the normal consumers.
To that end, though, I feel like, what we were speaking about before with Carlos, the successful competitor right now is probably someone that can break that barrier, transcend that barrier, like to both a professional and a consumer. You're doing it so well, delivering the information so well that it like reaches everyone. Should that be the goal of a competitor right now?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, honestly. But the winner, I mean, for the barista or brewers that evaluated well, is definitely the competitor that has deeper understanding towards the rule and regulations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So presentation, which means the presentation has to be attractive, yes, but at the same time, it's not the main point. So routine has to be followed, the rule and regulations, and ticking a point of the score sheet. So that's the most important part. But at the same time, if you follow that way, your routine going to be maybe boring.
Yes.
For most of the consumers. So that's why I'm suggesting we need to build competition from scratch if you want to look for consumer interactions.
So you're on the board of the SCA right now. Are you putting that to them? Oh, not at limited.
No. Even if I do that, then I couldn't say yes. But it's my personal opinions. It's my personal opinions because I've been working on the consumer field more than anybody in the coffee industry. So I work with lots of creative agencies. I work with lots of the professionals outside the coffee industries. Try to make coffee accessible to the normal consumers. My answer is very clear. Coffee people talks, complicated language to the consumers, and that makes consumer hard to understand what the coffee is. So through this platform, it's almost impossible to get involve the consumer to the competition stage, because even if you bring your mom, let her watch, and I am pretty sure that she's going to struggle.
Yeah, she probably would.
Yeah.
On the SCA point, there's been a bit of a development with the updating of the cupping protocol lately. So the CVA, the Coffee Value Assessment, that's what it stands for.
Coffee Value Assessment.
The standard's kind of been changed. The way that we deliver it has kind of been changed. And I'm in two minds about it myself, because I'm all for evolving things and making them better. And I can see why people would be upset about it. But I'm wondering, are we changing the system to make it less, I guess, practical for people? So basically, to fill those in that aren't aware of what I'm talking about. So we've got a standardized cupping score sheet in specialty coffee that I think has been in use for about 21 years now. And recently, the organization managing the CVA has decided to change the protocol. And to be honest, it takes a lot more in. If you're going to ask me which one can better assess a coffee, I'd say it's the new one. But it might be substantially more complicated to a point where maybe it's not realistic for people to 100% embrace it.
Right. Yeah, you got the very good point. I think it's gonna take time because whatever you do, like whatever the new thing, it always takes a time to adapt. But I believe the CVA is one of the best way to evaluate a specialty coffee anyway, because specialty coffee is agriculture product, but at the same time, specialty coffee is also the lifestyle. So that it is 100% important to evaluate quality itself, but also there's so many different aspects that you also need to consider in order to decide if it's specialty coffee or not. Yeah. So that's why that gave me think that the current CVA definitely one of the best way to assess the specialty coffee.
The current one, not the new one.
No, new one, CVA.
Okay,
New CVA. Yep.
Okay, good. So yeah, I'm in support of it as well. I think like sometimes people like to resist change.
For sure. Yeah.
I think to deliver the new one a bit better, and we're actually going to interview Giannis Apostolopoulos tomorrow. So I'll be asking him.
You can ask him lots of questions.
Yeah, I'll be asking him about this. But I think having an app-based system, and I know that there's a Tasteify or something like that. So I'll do some more research on that tonight. But to deliver the new one, I think it can't be paper-based. It'll have to be like application on your phone based for me to like ease to speed up and sort of deliver the program. So,
Exactly. So yeah, like I think after 20 years, I think it's a good time to change. And then I think the current specialty coffee market are getting super tough, especially not only specialty coffee, but also the coffee market in general, right? Like for the commercial market, for example. Look at the commercial market right now. Yeah, $4, or maybe depending on the Brazil harvest, maybe $6, maybe $7. You never know. You never imagine coffee price going to be like this. Yeah. So lots of uncertainty in the market right now. But all we certain is that we definitely need to serve a good quality coffee with the transparency and also the traceability behind it, and then also delivering a story to the consumers, so that in the specialty coffee we can actually convince people if it's worth investing into. Right. So that's why, that's why now we are in a very difficult time for sure, but at the same time, exciting time for the business owners.
I think this is an exciting time for business owners, and I say it all the time. There's never been a more exciting time to be in the coffee industry. But you're one of the people that are pushing things forward, Hidenori. Always pushing things forward, always working on something in the background. And so I have to ask, I know you might not be at liberty to talk about everything, but you mentioned before you're a consultant. What are some of the things that you're working on right now that you think will be big in the coffee industry in the future?
My project, you mean?
Yeah, or your project or anyone else's that you're allowed to talk about?
Well, so speaking of my project, so I've been working on Cocoon, right? So for Cocoon, it's not the consultancy project, but I got lots of inquiries about coffee omakase, because I think now so many people want to do this concept in their own country. And I am very glad to hear that, because most of the coffee omakase, most of those people are willing to change the perception of coffee in each countries, and then trying to be creative in order to serve coffee omakase, because coffee omakase requires lots of investment, but also lots of effort in order to kind of curate the course, tasting menus, right? So I'm getting a lot of inquiry lately. They ask me if I can do a consultant or not. Unfortunately, I cannot do that now because it's too much project already. But I'm glad to hear that now people are willing to do it right now. So in this WOC, Omacafe, the Mikhail Jessin's omakase brand, coffee omakase brand. So they have a booth out there. They're serving a coffee omakase out there, and I think that's also a really important, message to the coffee industries. So
we actually we went to his store here in Jakarta a few days ago. It was really good.
Yeah.
They're doing all sorts of innovative things with coffee, and I think there's been personally I had a bit of resistance to going outside of just drinking coffee with respect to drinking coffee. So let me explain that more. So I've always been like an espresso, flat white, filter coffee guy. And I didn't want to try, experimenting with like coffee cocktails sort of thing.
Right.
But I'm much more open to it nowadays. And I think the community at large is as well. Like so many more people have demand for those styles of drinks.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the whole point. We need to approach to the layer we couldn't approach for past few years. Because now serving coffee as it is also important. But sometimes, most of the consumer, we need to understand that most of the consumer doesn't even understand how fruity coffee can be. Yeah, because most of the perception is coffee is bitter. And if the coffee is acidic, people are, no, I don't want to drink this coffee. Yeah. So that's why we are kind of missing a part, missing the gap. Yeah, missing this gap for a long time. We're kind of ignoring this gap for a long time. So we're forcing customers try this because it's floral, because it's fruity. Yeah. But those customers who truly willingly understand what it is are very, very few in the most of the consumer range. So that makes sense that most of the specialty coffee market is not growing as much as it's supposed to be. So that's why the coffee omakase concept is very important from my point of view, because you can fill that gap. Yeah, because that concept is like integrated from the culinary experience, for example, right? Or cocktails, a lot of different knowledge, ideas, behind it. So coffee is the main ingredients for sure, but at the same time, they can also, integrate different seasonal fruit, vegetables, or herbs, or spices to curate the coffee mocktails or new innovative milk beverage, for example, so that the customer can understand, whoa, coffee can be different.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we had a discussion with World Bartending Champion Orlando Marzo a few weeks ago.
Oh,
I'd encourage you to listen to that podcast. I should connect you together. Actually, he's Italian guy. He's world class bartender of the year.
Right.
I think that was the title. But mixologists are incredibly talented people. I think like we in the coffee industry can learn a lot from them.
Yeah, a lot. Coffee people, I mean, for barista is more like a chef from my point of view. So in the coffee industry, always look up for wines, but a wine are very different product. As the more you know about it, the more you realize it's completely different product. But to me, it makes sense if I call myself as barista as just like a chef. So if it's because baristas also choose the water temperature, what kind of water we use, grind settings as well, recipes. So even the roasting as well, it's very much a chef. So if you think the barista as a chef, so you would have a different perspective towards it. Yeah.
I want to ask you work actively in your business, Cocoon, doing the coffee omakase yourself. Who's like the biggest, most famous person that's come through? Surely you've had some high rollers.
Biggest? Depends. Yeah, really depends on which categories. But we have NBA players. NBA players came. Some very famous musicians.
Do you remember who the NBA players were?
I do, but I think
you're not going to say.
Yeah, I cannot say that. One of the most richest men in the US.
Okay. Came through. Did he leave a generous tip, I hope?
They told me like, oh, can I buy whole thing?
Oh, really?
And I said, maybe not.
10 million.
Maybe not.
Maybe we can do a deal. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's I think there's a bit of a convergence happening between like coffee and sort of prominent people getting into it, right? Like
yeah, I mean, like I think that's my work as well, because I think now most of the coffee brand are speaking towards the coffee people. Yeah. But to me, if you want to make specialty coffee accessible to the real consumers, so you need to approach the right consumer layers. So which means that specialty coffee is such a premium product, so that we need to approach to the customer layer who appreciate the experience. Yeah. So which means that customer who stays for luxury hotels, or customer who prefer to dining in the Michelin star restaurants. So customers who interested in the good clothes as well. So the more you're getting into it, the more you understand that coffee is such a lifestyle. So I believe we need to have this mindset rather than speaking about so many complicated flavor profiles to the consumers. So we need to understand and how we can approach to those customer layers. So as a result, and we can definitely increase the share of the specialty coffee because those people speaks between each other. Yeah. And then that mouth to mouth effect going to be bigger and bigger. So we need to do this globally so that we can make specialty coffee more sustainable in the future.
I agree. And it will only make it more, approachable and attractive and get more people participating, which is unambiguously a great thing. Before we wrap up, I want to ask, what's something we haven't spoken about that you would like the listener to know?
Oh,
you're not on podcast that often.
You already asked me all the question, man. Like you're the best podcaster, Kirk. You're the best, man.
No, you're the best. You're the best. No, but I owe you a special thanks. You're a big help to me in motivating me to come over and helping me organize it.
Thank you. Thank you for coming over, man.
You've been a very good friend, very good mentor. So, mate,
likewise.
You're the best. You're the best.
You're the best, man. Thank you so much.
Ichiban, number one. All right. Well, that just about wraps it up. If you would like to improve your home coffee game at home, you can with Timor products. We are supported by them. Timor do hand grinders, kettles, and I saw backstage just this morning a lot of the competitors at the World Brewers Cup. So they want to win the world best. They want to be the world's best brewer, and they're using Timor sculptor grinders. Can you believe it? Hand grinders, they're all over the place. Timor, if you would like one for yourself, excellent for home, good value too. Timor.com or at your local distributor near you. Hidenori, that wraps it up for this time.
Thank you, Kirk.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Coming
Best
on
of
the
luck
coffee show.
for the beautiful
You're the
podcast,
best.
man.
Cheers.
Cheers.